On February 14th, 1986, Raymond Welling punched his time card at Facility 7 for the last time. The card showed 11:47 p.m., 3 hours after his shift ended. At 6:15 the following morning, a maintenance crew found his body at the base of the number 4 press. Blunt force trauma to the skull. Pennsylvania State Police ruled it accidental within 72 hours. The coroner agreed. OSHA closed its file before spring, but they never explained why Welling's hard hat was found on the opposite side of the building. They never addressed the 14 feet of security tape missing from that night's footage. And they never questioned why a man with 23 years on the floor would climb onto equipment that hadn't run since October. Some accidents don't add up. Raymond Welling's didn't even try. 8 months later, a rented Buick pulled into the gravel lot of a self-storage facility outside Scranton. The woman behind the wheel was Diane Vance, 34, a documentary filmmaker whose last project had won minor festival recognition and major credit card debt. She'd never met Raymond Welling, but she'd known his nephew Paul for 6 years, and when Paul died of a heart attack that September, his will had included a strange bequest. Unit 47-C and everything in it. The letter accompanying the key explained nothing except that Paul had spent his final months continuing his uncle's work. What work, it didn't say.
Paul, what the hell did you leave me?
The storage unit was 12 feet deep and packed floor to ceiling. Filing cabinets, cardboard boxes with dates written in marker, a folding table covered with photographs and photocopied documents. Diane recognized Paul's handwriting on the labels, meticulous, almost obsessive. But underneath, older labels in a different hand. R. Welling, personal research. The smell of old paper and dust. She pulled the chain on the overhead bulb and began reading the first file she touched.
Personnel anomalies, Facility 7, November 1985 through January 1986. Shift assignments cross-referenced with production logs.
The file contained photocopies of time cards, dozens of them. Someone had circled discrepancies in red ink. 3 hours later, Diane had created a rough inventory. 17 filing cabinet drawers, each crammed with documents. 8 boxes of photographs, some from inside the factory, others of vehicles and license plates. A cassette recorder with 11 unmarked tapes. And a spiral notebook that appeared to be Raymond Welling's personal journal. The final entry was dated February 12, 1986, 2 days before his death.
They're moving product through the overnight shift. I count 6 men rotating through positions that don't exist on the official roster. The question isn't what. The question is, who's authorizing it?
Diane closed the notebook. She looked at the wall of evidence surrounding her. Paul had died trying to make sense of this. Raymond had died discovering it. The first name in Raymond's notebook was Earl Drucker, Facility 7's night shift supervisor for 11 years. Diane found him 3 days later at a VFW hall in Dunmore, nursing a beer at 2 in the afternoon. Drucker was 61, retired since March, and he didn't look happy to hear Raymond Welling's name.
Lady, I don't know what you think you're doing, but Ray Welling was a friend of mine. We worked the same line for 15 years.
Then you'd want to know what really happened to him.
I know what happened. He had an accident. Terrible thing.
At 11:47 at night? 3 hours after his shift ended?
Drucker's hand tightened around his glass. He didn't answer.
He had ideas, theories, about the way things ran at night.
What kind of theories?
The kind that get a man in trouble if he talks about them to the wrong people. Look, I don't know you. I don't know what you want. But whatever Ray was into, it died with him. That's how it has to be.
His nephew Paul spent 8 months trying to prove otherwise. Then Paul died too.
Something shifted in Drucker's face. Not sympathy. Fear.
I'm sorry about that. I am. But I can't help you.
Can't or won't?
Both. And if you're smart, You'll leave this alone.
He left money on the bar and walked out without looking back. Diane spent the next week in the storage unit, building a timeline. Raymond had started his investigation in November 1985, after noticing irregularities in the production logs. Parts were being manufactured during the overnight shift that never appeared in the shipping manifests. Equipment was running when official records showed it idle, and certain workers, always the same 6 men, appeared on time cards for shifts that didn't match their department assignments.
November 12th, 1985. Raymond notes first discrepancy. 47 units produced on Press 4, overnight shift. Shipping log shows Press 4 down for maintenance. No units shipped. December 3rd, same pattern. December 19th, January 8th.
She pulled another file. The 6 workers Raymond had identified, all hired within the same 3-month period in 1984. The personnel files had been harder for Raymond to obtain. Diane found photocopies with handwritten notes about which secretary he'd befriended, which records room he'd accessed after hours. The 6 workers shared an unusual pattern. All had listed the same previous employer on their applications, a company called Keystone Industrial Services. Diane checked the library's business directories. Keystone had no listed address, no phone number, no incorporation records in Pennsylvania. It appeared to exist only on these 6 job applications.
Ghost company. Shell for placing workers. But placing them where? And why Facility 7?
She spread the 6 photographs on the table, faces that seemed ordinary, unremarkable, the kind you'd forget the moment they punched out. Raymond's journal mentioned a foreman named Bud Kowalczyk, one of the few people on the overnight shift he trusted. Diane found Kowalczyk living in a duplex in Taylor, surviving on disability after a back injury. He answered the door with suspicion that softened slightly when she mentioned Raymond's name.
You family? No, I'm trying to understand what he was investigating before he died.
Ray was investigating why the company was lying to itself. That's the short version.
And the long version?
Kowalczyk looked past her at the street, checking for something or someone.
Come inside. But this stays between us. I mean that. Ray came to me in December. Said he'd been tracking production numbers that didn't make sense. Equipment running when it shouldn't be. Workers clocking in for jobs that didn't exist.
Did you believe him?
I'd noticed things myself. Shipments going out at 3 in the morning. Trucks I didn't recognize. But I got a family. I kept my head down.
What was being shipped?
I don't know. Ray thought he did. He was getting close to something. I could tell by how nervous he was those last few weeks.
Did he tell you what?
Kowalczyk shook his head, but his eyes said otherwise.
Whatever it was, it got him killed. And I'd like to not be next.
The cassette tapes from Paul's collection were mostly interviews. People Paul had tracked down who'd known his uncle. Former co-workers, neighbors, a bartender who'd served Raymond his last drink. Most said nothing useful. But tape number 7 was different. The voice was Raymond's own.
Testing, testing. February 11th, 1986. If something happens to me, I want this on record. The overnight shift at Facility 7 is being used to manufacture and ship product that doesn't appear in any company documentation. I believe the operation is being run by someone in upper management, possibly with connections to organized...
The tape cut off. When it resumed, Raymond's voice was quieter.
I have names, I have dates. What I don't have is proof of what they're actually moving.
Raymond's tape mentioned a name. Vincent Garza, Facility 7's operations manager. Diane found Garza's current address through public records. He'd left the company in March 1986, 1 month after Raymond's death, and now ran a landscaping business in Clark's Summit. She drove there on a Thursday morning and found him loading equipment into a truck.
Mr. Garza? I'm researching an industrial accident that happened at Facility 7 in February 1986. Raymond Welling.
Garza's hands stopped moving. He didn't turn around.
That was a long time ago.
8 months.
Feels longer. I don't work there anymore. Can't help you.
Can't or won't. That's the second time this week I've heard that.
Lady, I don't know who you are or what you want, but Raymond Welling had an accident. Tragic. We all felt it. But there's no story here.
Then why did you leave the company 6 weeks later?
Personal reasons.
After 11 years? The same month OSHA closed their investigation?
Garza's jaw tightened. He set down the equipment he was holding.
You're making connections that don't exist.
Raymond Welling made the same connections. He documented workers who weren't on the official roster, production runs that never appeared in shipping logs, trucks leaving at 3 in the morning. You were operations manager. You had to know.
I don't have to talk to you.
No. But someone should.
Garza didn't talk that day. But 3 nights later, Diane's motel phone rang at 11 p.m. The voice on the other end was Garza's, nervous, speaking quickly.
I shouldn't be calling, but I can't sleep anymore and you need to understand something.
I'm listening.
I didn't know what they were doing. Not at first. I just knew certain production lines were off limits to regular oversight. Orders from above.
Above? Meaning who?
I can't look. There's a man named Kendrick, Arthur Kendrick. He was regional VP back then. He's the one who brought in those 6 workers. He's the one who changed the shift schedules. And he's the one who told me to keep my mouth shut after Ray died.
The line went dead. Garza didn't answer when she called back. Arthur Kendrick had retired in 1987, 1 year after Raymond's death, with full pension and a house in the Poconos. Diane drove there, expecting gates and security. She found a modest ranch house at the end of a gravel road, smoke rising from the chimney. Kendrick answered his own door. He was 72, white-haired, with the measured calm of a man who'd spent decades managing difficult situations.
You must be the filmmaker. Garza called to warn me you might come.
Then you know why I'm here.
I know what you think you're looking for. Come in, I'll make coffee, and then I'll explain why you're wasting your time. Raymond Welling was a good worker, dedicated, but he had a suspicious mind, saw conspiracies where there were only inefficiencies.
Inefficiencies like production runs that never shipped?
Quality control issues, rejected batches. It happens in manufacturing.
Every week? For 3 months?
You've done your homework.
Raymond did. I just inherited it.
Kendrick set down his coffee cup with deliberate precision.
Ms. Vance, I spent 34 years in industrial management. I've seen men like Raymond before. They notice patterns and they build stories around them. Most of the time, they're wrong. Sometimes they're dangerous.
Dangerous to whom?
To themselves, mostly. To their families. Raymond should have focused on his job instead of playing detective.
His nephew Paul continued the investigation after Raymond died. Paul had a heart attack 2 months ago.
For just a moment, something flickered in Kendrick's eyes. Not surprise. Calculation.
I'm sorry to hear that, truly. But coincidences happen.
2 men investigating the same thing, both dead within 2 years?
One fell, one had a heart condition. I understand the appeal of connecting dots, Miss Vance. It's human nature. But sometimes dots are just dots.
Diane held his gaze.
And sometimes they're a map.
Back at the storage unit, Diane reviewed what she had. Raymond had documented the irregularities. Garza had confirmed someone above him was running the operation. Kendrick had denied everything, while revealing he knew exactly what Raymond had discovered. But none of it explained what was actually being manufactured and shipped. She pulled the box marked physical evidence and found something she'd overlooked before. A small manila envelope labeled Sample, Press 4, 15th, 86. Inside was a metal component, cylindrical, precision machined, approximately 4 inches long. It looked like a pipe fitting, but the threading was unusual. Military grade, maybe. She photographed it from every angle and began making calls. The third machinist she contacted recognized the component immediately. His name was Frank Yost, retired from a defense contractor in Allentown. He agreed to meet at a diner off Route 81.
Where'd you get this?
Does it matter?
It matters because this is a valve housing for a specific type of hydraulic system. Military spec. The only legal manufacturer in the U.S. is licensed through the Department of Defense.
And if it's being manufactured illegally?
Then someone's running a black market operation supplying components to people who can't buy them through legitimate channels.
Diane felt the pieces shifting in her mind. Not drugs, not stolen goods, weapons components.
You understand what you're dealing with here? This isn't some guy stealing copper wire. This is export-controlled military hardware.
Who would buy it?
Pick a country we don't sell to. Iran, Libya, half of South America. The market's there. The question is how they're getting it out.
Through a legitimate manufacturing facility. Hide the production in the overnight shift. Ship it out with regular freight.
Smart. Especially if you've got someone inside who can cook the books.
Diane thought of Kendrick's measured calm. 34 years in industrial management. Garza's nervous phone call. The 6 workers who didn't exist on paper.
What if someone found out and tried to expose it?
They'd have to be stopped, one way or another.
Diane thanked Yost and drove back to the storage unit. She sat in the dark for an hour, the metal component in her hand, thinking about Raymond Welling. He'd figured it out, or come close enough to be dangerous. He'd probably confronted someone or let slip that he knew, and then he'd had an accident. She pulled out his journal and read the final entry again.
The question isn't what. The question is who's authorizing it.
Kendrick was regional VP. He had the authority. But Raymond hadn't known about Kendrick, or if he hadn't written it down. Someone else had given Raymond that name. Someone who'd known enough to point him in the right direction. Diane returned to the VFW hall in Dunmore. Earl Drucker was there again. Same seat, same beer. He didn't look surprised to see her.
I told you I can't help.
You told Raymond about Kendrick, didn't you?
Drucker's hand stopped halfway to his glass.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Raymond's journal says someone on the inside pointed him toward management. You were night shift supervisor. You saw everything. You knew who was authorizing the off-book production.
Keep your voice down.
I know what they were making, Mr. Drucker. Military components. Export-controlled. Someone's been selling weapons parts to people who can't buy them legally. And Raymond died because he found out.
I told Ray because I thought he could do something about it. Get it to the right people. Instead, he went charging in like he could fix it himself.
What happened?
He confronted Garza, demanded answers. Garza reported it up the chain, and 2 days later, Ray was dead.
You're saying Garza knew?
Garza knew enough to know he didn't want to know more. He was middle management. He did what he was told.
And what about you? What did you do?
Drucker finally looked at her directly. His eyes were wet.
I buried my friend. Then I kept my mouth shut for 8 months. What do you think I did? The 6 workers Kendrick brought in. They weren't regular employees. They were specialists, machinists with military training. They'd come in for the overnight shift, produce the components, and a truck would come at 3 a.m. to pick up the shipment.
Where did the truck go?
I don't know, but I know who drove it. Man named Carmine Peluso. He ran a trucking company out of Pittston. Legitimate on paper, but everyone knew he was connected.
Connected to who?
Lady, use your imagination. This isn't something a regional VP cooks up by himself. There's money behind it. Organization. The kind that doesn't leave loose ends.
Diane wrote down the name. Carmine Peluso. Pittston. Carmine Peluso had died in 1989. Car accident on Route 315. His trucking company had dissolved shortly after. But Diane found his widow still living in Pittston, in a house that had seen better decades. Maria Peluso was suspicious of strangers, but opened the door when Diane mentioned she was making a documentary about industrial accidents.
My husband wasn't in any industrial accident.
No, but he may have known someone who was. Raymond Welling. He worked at Facility 7 in Dunmore.
Maria's face closed like a door.
I don't know that name.
I think you do. I think your husband drove a truck that picked up shipments from Facility 7 at 3 in the morning. I think you know more about what happened there than you've ever told anyone.
My husband's been dead 7 years. Whatever he did or didn't do, it doesn't matter anymore.
It matters to me. And it mattered to Raymond Welling's nephew, who spent the last months of his life trying to understand why his uncle died.
Something shifted in Maria's expression. Not sympathy. Recognition.
The nephew, Paul. He came here too, a few months back.
What did you tell him?
Same thing I'm telling you. Nothing.
Paul had a heart attack 2 weeks after he came to see you.
Maria's hand tightened on the doorframe.
That's not my fault.
No, but whatever you know, it's getting people killed. How many more before you talk?
Carmine didn't know what was in the crates. Not at first. He just drove. Good money, no questions. That was the deal.
But he found out.
He opened one. Curiosity. Saw the components. He'd done 2 years in the Army, recognized military hardware when he saw it.
What did he do?
He went to his boss, man named Kendrick. Asked for more money to keep quiet.
Diane felt her stomach drop. Kendrick again.
3 months later, Carmine's brakes failed on Route 315. Police said it was mechanical failure. I knew better. But who was I going to tell?
3 deaths. Raymond, Carmine, Paul. All connected to the same operation. All ruled accidents or natural causes. Diane returned to the storage unit that night and began assembling the full picture on the wall. Photographs, names, dates. A web of connections that led inevitably to Arthur Kendrick. She worked until 3 in the morning, stopping only when she heard a car pull into the lot outside. Headlights swept across the unit's door, then went dark. She killed her work light and listened. Footsteps on gravel. Slow, deliberate. They stopped outside her unit.
Miss Vance? We know you're in there. Mr. Kendrick would like to speak with you again. Properly this time.
Diane looked at the evidence surrounding her. 8 months of Raymond's work. 8 months of Paul's. And now hers. She had 2 choices. Run or face whatever was waiting outside. Diane grabbed her camera bag and slipped out the back of the unit through a maintenance panel Raymond had documented in his notes. She circled through the lot and reached her car without being seen. As she drove away, she saw 2 men standing outside Unit 47C, waiting for a woman who was no longer there. She drove to the nearest payphone and called the only person she could think of.
Dunmore Police, Officer Pruitt. Officer, my name is Diane Vance. I'm a documentary filmmaker. I've been investigating the death of Raymond Welling at Facility 7, and I believe I'm now in danger from the same people who killed him.
Ma'am, Raymond Welling's death was ruled an accident.
I know what it was ruled. I also know it was murder, and I can prove it.
Officer Mike Pruitt had been a rookie when Raymond died. He remembered the case. More importantly, he remembered how quickly it had been closed, how firmly the detectives had been told to move on. He met Diane at an all-night diner outside Scranton at 2 a.m.
You understand I could lose my job for this.
I understand. But I've got documentation that connects Arthur Kendrick to an illegal weapons component manufacturing operation run out of Facility 7's overnight shift. 3 people connected to that operation are dead, all ruled accidents or natural causes.
Kendrick's retired, protected. You can't just accuse a man like that.
I'm not accusing. I'm documenting. There's a difference.
Looking through documents. This production schedule discrepancy, I remember hearing about this. One of the older detectives mentioned it during the investigation, but it got buried.
Buried how?
Orders from above. Chief got a call from someone in Harrisburg. Next day, the case was closed.
Harrisburg. State level.
Kendrick had connections. Still does. If what you're saying is true, this goes way beyond one factory in Dunmore.
Diane pulled out the metal component she'd found in Raymond's evidence box.
This is what they were making. Military-grade valve housings, export-controlled, sold to countries we don't do business with legally.
Pruitt turned the component over in his hands, understanding dawning on his face.
If I take this to my captain, it disappears. Same as before.
I know. That's why I'm not asking you to.
Then what?
I want you to drive to Kendrick's house with me, tomorrow morning, as a witness. I'm going to confront him on camera.
That's insane. He'll have you arrested. Or worse.
He might, but I've already sent copies of everything to 3 different journalists and a lawyer in Philadelphia. If something happens to me, this story goes public anyway. Kendrick's only play is to cooperate.
Pruitt stared at her for a long moment.
You've thought this through.
Raymond Welling didn't have backup. Neither did his nephew. I'm not making the same mistake.
They arrived at Kendrick's house at 9 a.m. Diane wore a small microphone clipped inside her jacket. Her camera was running before she got out of the car. Kendrick opened the door, looking older than he had a week ago. Behind him, Diane could see 2 men in the living room, the same men who'd come to the storage unit.
Miss Vance, I see you brought a police officer.
Witness. I've also got copies of everything sent to journalists and attorneys. If anything happens to me or Officer Pruitt, this story goes public immediately.
Kendrick's eyes flickered to the men behind him.
That won't be necessary. Please, come in. I think it's time we had an honest conversation. You've been thorough, I'll give you that.
Raymond Welling was thorough. I just followed his work.
Raymond was a problem. He discovered something he shouldn't have and wouldn't let it go.
So you had him killed.
I didn't have anyone killed. Raymond's death was an accident. He was trespassing in the facility after hours, probably looking for more evidence. He fell.
From equipment that hadn't been operational in 4 months?
An unfortunate detail.
Diane leaned forward.
Let me tell you what I think happened, Mr. Kendrick, and you can tell me where I'm wrong. Facility 7 was producing military components during the overnight shift. Valve housings, precision machined, export controlled. You brought in 6 workers through a shell company called Keystone Industrial Services. They worked shifts that didn't appear on official records, producing inventory that never showed up in shipping manifests.
Speculation.
Carmine Peluso's trucking company picked up shipments at 3 a.m. and transported them somewhere off the books. When Peluso tried to blackmail you for more money, his brakes failed on Route 315.
Coincidence.
Raymond Welling documented all of it. The production discrepancies, the ghost workers, the midnight shipments. He was going to expose you. So someone made sure he had an accident too.
Kendrick's expression didn't change, but his hands had stopped moving.
The buyers were foreign governments, countries under embargo. You were running an illegal arms pipeline through a Pennsylvania factory, and you've been killing anyone who got too close to the truth. Raymond, Carmine. And I believe you're responsible for Paul Welling's death too, even if I can't prove it yet.
Paul Welling had a heart condition. His death was natural.
Convenient.
You have a lot of theories, Miss Vance, but theories aren't evidence. Everything you've described could be explained by incompetence, bad bookkeeping, coincidence.
Then explain the component I found in Raymond's evidence box. Military spec. No legitimate reason for Facility 7 to be manufacturing it.
For the first time, Kendrick looked uncertain.
Where did you get that?
Raymond's storage unit. The one your men tried to visit last night.
You told me you secured everything. She wasn't supposed to have a backup exit.
Diane watched the careful facade crack.
Mr. Kendrick, I've documented everything. I have Raymond's research, his recordings, photographs of the ghost workers, production logs, shipping manifests. I have a sworn statement from Earl Drucker confirming the off-book operation. I have Maria Peluso's testimony about her husband's death. And I have this component, which proves exactly what you were manufacturing.
What do you want?
The truth. On camera. Or I release everything I have to the FBI.
You think the FBI doesn't know? You think an operation this size runs without protection?
I think protection has limits. I think 3 dead bodies and documented evidence of export violations to embargoed nations is enough to end careers. I think you're 72 years old and you don't want to spend your final years in federal prison.
The room was silent. Outside, a car passed on the road. The guards looked at Kendrick, waiting.
Leave us. Sir, I said leave.
The men exchanged looks, then walked out. Kendrick turned to Diane with something almost like respect.
Turn on your camera. Let's do this properly.
Arthur Kendrick spoke for 47 minutes. He confirmed the weapons component operation, the shell company, the 6 specialist workers, the midnight shipments. He named his contacts in Harrisburg who had provided political cover. He admitted to ordering Carmine Peluso's death when Peluso became a liability. He stopped short of confessing to Raymond Welling's murder, claiming only that he'd instructed his men to deal with the problem and hadn't asked how.
I'm not a monster, Miss Vance. I'm a businessman who saw an opportunity. The market existed. The demand existed. All I did was meet it.
And when people got in the way?
The machine protects itself. I didn't invent that. I just operated within it.
3 weeks later, Diane Vance screened her documentary for a federal prosecutor in Philadelphia. Arthur Kendrick was arrested the following morning. His confession led to indictments of 4 state officials and the reopening of Raymond Welling's case. The death was officially reclassified as homicide, though no one was ever charged specifically for his murder. Earl Drucker testified before a grand jury. Maria Peluso finally told her story. Facility 7 was shut down pending investigation, its records seized by federal agents. Diane visited Raymond's grave on what would have been his 65th birthday. She left a copy of the documentary on the headstone. The case stamp was finally changed from accidental to something closer to the truth. Not justice. Raymond and Paul and Carmine would never get that. But acknowledgement. Sometimes that's all the dead can ask for.